All right, 5.2 is about the Christianization of Europe. And I hope you can all see because the sun is coming in through the window over there. All right, and so 5.2 is about the Christianization of Europe, meaning that we're going to have a look at how Christianity spread throughout Europe during this time. And as you can see, it says that missionaries spread Christianity in Europe between the 6th and 10th centuries, and that they mix it with Germanic rituals. We're going to be talking about that later on as well, and that monks in monasteries were guardians of classical culture, and they are guardians of the classical culture because they could write, and they actually copied a lot of classical literature. And as you guys might remember, classical was when something was copied quite a lot, when it was used quite a lot another time, meaning that, for example, they copy literature written in Latin. And as I said, the monks could write, and they usually made quite a work of art of their writings using the letters, as you can see at the top for the first letter of every page. All right. So there's also a special kind of monks. We call them missionaries, and missionaries are the ones that travel through Europe to convert the German tribes that we talked about in 5.1. All right. We're going to be talking about two examples of missionaries in this time, Boniface and Willibrord, and you can find those two on page 108 in your book. So let's have a look at that. Boniface, he was killed near Dockham, so sorry, spoiler. On June 5th, 754, a camp of tents could be standing in the red light, could be seen standing in the red light of dawn near the Frisian town of Dockham. Inside one of the tents was one of the most famous men of his time, the almost 80-year-old Boniface, 80 years. Together with dozens of other priests, he had been traveling through the northern Netherlands for a few months trying to convert the Frisians to Christianity. So converting means to get them to become Christian. Boniface was planning to have a ceremony with a group of Frisian Christians. It promised to be a fine day, but as the sun broke through the clouds, a gang of robbers reached the camp. A priest later described what happened next. Boniface's armed servants drew their swords to defend the elderly man. But he forbade them to fight. He said, "Stop it, man, for the Bible teaches us not to fight evil with evil, but with good." The day we have been waiting for has come at last, and while Boniface was speaking, the attackers threw themselves on him and beat him to death. Boniface died a martyr. And if you don't know what it is, look it up on Google, because by looking words up, you're going to be able to remember them better than when I just tell you what the word means. All right, and you see Boniface on the picture as well. It is said that he tried protecting himself with the Bible, but as it says in the book, unfortunately, that did not work very well. All right, then we have Willibrord, and he was a bit more successful. Centuries before the death of Boniface, so he lived before, Christianity had spread throughout the Roman Empire. The Frankish Empire was Christian, as we saw with Clovis, remember? Monks had also brought Christianity to Ireland and England. But the people who lived in the Netherlands and Germany around the year 700 were heathens, heidenen, people that were not Christians, were called heathens in that day. In 690, the English monk Willibrord landed near Katwijk with 12 assistants. They were missionaries who had come to the Netherlands to Christianize the Frisians. So Christianize is basically the same as convert. All the people who lived north of the rivers in the Netherlands were called Frisians. Willibrord had carefully prepared his mission. He had asked permission from the Frankish king Pepin and Charlemagne's great-grandfather. Pepin had promised to protect Willibrord because he felt it was his duty to help spread Christianity. Willibrord had also been to Rome, where the Pope had made him Archbishop of the Frisians. In the Netherlands, Willibrord built a church in Trajectum, Utrecht, using stones from the ruins of an old Roman fort. And it is still there, that church. I think it is the Dom Church in Utrecht, and it's not dumb because it's stupid, but dumb with an O. I understand. Churches are usually called dumbs, or usually they are. All right. Christian Europe. Yeah, here we go. All right. Sorry guys, it was loading for a minute, so that's why. All right. Converting the Germanic people was not easy because they have their own belief, they have their own faith, and then there's this guy coming over. He's like, no, you need to become Christian. You have to. They're like, no, we already have a belief, so why? We already have a religion, so why would we want to become Christian? Missionaries were seen as intruders usually, who were helping the Franks to subject them. So the Germanic peoples thought that the Franks were trying to use the missionaries to subject them, to take over their countries. After the conversion of after Charlemagne subjected the Frisians and the Saxons, Christianity started becoming a common religion. So in the end, we see that what they accused the Franks of doing actually sort of came true, because after the Franks had subjected the Frisians and the Saxons, they did become Christian. So Christianity spread through subjecting people as well. All right. Then what I said about mixing cultures, the old Germanic tradition did not disappear completely, and it has to do with the fact that to make the transition to Christianity easier, the church started celebrating Christian holidays on days that were Germanic feasts. As you guys might remember, we did this quiz on Christmas, and I told you guys the same thing. I told you about the fact that we still celebrate Christmas on the 25th, which is quite obvious because of the birth of Jesus Christ, but it was also easy to use that date because usually the Germanic peoples already used that date to celebrate the winter solstice. So the church also adopts Germanic traditions. Christmas, the celebration of the birth of Christ, was celebrated on the day of the Germanic midwinter festival, as I just said, and the Christians held on to the use of the Christmas tree, whose green needles and Germanic eyes represented the possibility of the return of spring. Easter, the celebration of Christ's resurrection, which is this weekend, as you guys know, was celebrated during the Germanic Spring Festival, and for centuries the Germanic peoples had lit huge fires during Spring Festival to chase the winter away, and they still use that in usually the more northern countries like Denmark and Norway. They still have these Easter fires to celebrate the fact that spring is here and to celebrate the resurrection of Christ. Alright, let's move on. Influential clerics. Someone asked me this week, I think it was this week, what the clergy is. The clergy is the geestelijkheid. So everyone that was either a monk or a nun was involved with the church, was part of the clergy. And the clergy was very influential because they were the only people in medieval times that could write. They had studied for a few years, they could write in Latin, they could read, so they often got important positions as well. The clergy was very influential, as I said. When people went to the Mass, the church service on Sunday, they were told what they should and shouldn't do, which things were allowed and what was forbidden. Because only the clergy could write, they were the only people that could actually tell the normal people how they should live their lives. Because of their literary skills, they often had important position as advisors to kings and as lawmakers because they can write laws down. which comes in quite handy, or they can write letters to other kings and all that. Monks and nuns form a special kind of clergy. They lived isolated from society, usually in monasteries, in cloisters. And their life consisted of praying and working. We call it ora et labora, which is a Latin term, and it does mean praying and working. So they had this life that was completely set out for them, that was the same each day, in which I think they prayed 5 times, and in between that they were working or studying or writing or whatever they were doing in there. Then the rich church, page 110. Lots of kings and nobles made donations to the church to secure a place in heaven. So what they thought was that they could buy a place in heaven, which of course is not true. But the church, they could use that money, so they used that excuse. They also often left possessions to the church when they died. So when a nobleman or a king dies, they usually leave money for the church as well. Through these gifts, the church acquired a lot of land and became incredibly rich, especially because the church didn't have to pay taxes. That's nice. They get a lot of money and they don't have to pay anything, basically. A special way of supporting the church was by founding monasteries. In 923, for example, Count Dirk of Holland founded the Egmond Abbey in the dunes of what is now the province of North Holland. And it is to be seen on illustration 14, page 111. His son Dirk II gave the monastery pieces of land on which the monks could grow crops. So in that way, you see, they start off with a monastery. Then later on they are gifted land as well, so their riches expand. And as you guys might know, I don't know if any of you guys are Catholic, but the Catholic Church is usually quite wealthily decorated, lots of gold, lots of statues, and that has to do with the fact that the church used to be really rich, so that stems from this time. Alright, that was it, guys.